thank all of y'all for coming. We planned a little get together and we got a really good get together for sure. And at this time, I'd like to introduce an old friend of mine. We go back to high school rodeo together. This is where we first met and known him ever since. But at any rate, Mike Callicrate has Ranch Direct Foods in Colorado Springs, and also has an operation in St. Francis, Kansas. And he's come to kind of explain to us what he does and what he foresees and what he thinks will work and knows will work. And so it'll be just interesting to listen. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Dave. Well, I think the inspiration for me coming here is your Safeway's closing. And I was at the gas station, and I asked the young lady, I said, "Where's Safeway?" And she said, "It's just down the street." You told me how to get there. But she says, "There's not much left in there." And she said, "It's closing." And I said, "How's that going to impact your community?" She said, "It's going to be terrible." She said, "Walmart's already raising their prices." She said, "It's time to move." And I thought, wow, man, that's not a good thing. But how many other people are thinking about this? And I really see the closing of Safeway and some of the Krogers and even Walmart's closing stores as kind of the end of the line for this path we've been on. It begins with industrial agriculture. Basically the mining of your resources, whether it's water or soil or community, and money being siphoned off to corporate headquarters throughout the country. And they're using up the asset, and when a host dies, the parasite either dies with it or it leaves. And this is what I see happening. Walmart kills and consumes the prey, which is your main streets, your communities, your farms, and the dollar store comes in to eat the decaying remains. And then it is over. And so why did we allow this to happen? Well, Sam Walton taught us to be aggressive price shoppers. Even though it may be contrary to our own self-interest, we became price shoppers. And it's kind of sickening to see, because the price you pay at Walmart is not the true cost. It's a much higher price. It's a much higher price when you don't have a country left, and Wall Street's got all the money, or private equity's got all the money, or whatever. And so about 25 years ago, I started Ranch Foods Direct because I couldn't sell my cattle anymore. And I decided, if I'm going to be in the cattle business, I'm going to have to sell meat, which means I've got to create a pathway around the big meat packing monopoly and their retail partners. And that's what we did. And it's been very, very difficult. It's been very painful. There's been good times, there's been bad times, but you're always under pressure, because you're not making the monopoly, the cartel, very happy, giving consumers, a better choice. But we're still going. And so I talk about building community around local food, and this is what we do with the Peak to Plains Food Hub and Ranch Foods Direct. But I think what we've done is, I just heard someone put it the other day, we've got order, disorder, and reorder. Order is when things are okay, disorder is like they are today, and reorder is how we're going to fix it, how we're going to make it better, how we're going to re-engage as a citizen instead of an aggressive price shopping consumer. How are we going to build our communities back and make them great places to live, so that young lady at that gas station can say, "This is where I'm staying, my kids are going to go to school here, I'm committed, and I want to be a part of this community," rather than abandoning ship and taking off. July 26, 2018, I went to school at Lamar Community College, so I've been up and down this Highway 50 from Lamar to Pueblo a lot over the years. But I went to a cowboy reunion at Lamar in in 2018. And you can just see, boy, they're hurting. This town is hurting big time. They didn't get the IDP plant that Garden City got, but they were considered. But they didn't get it, which could have been good or bad, I don't know. But the Lamar, I wrote this to Anne Marie, who was the organizer in Lamar for the Cowboy Virginia and worked at the college. And I said, Anne Marie, we need to learn, we need to teach butchery. We need to teach people how to cut meat. Why doesn't Lamar put in a curriculum that will teach people to cut meat? Because if we're going to build this new alternative food system that goes around what we currently have, we need skilled workers again. And I said, I think it's a real opportunity for Lamar Community College to put a curriculum like that in place. And so but I said, you've got to begin with the end in mind. You can't just go build a little packing plant and start selling meat because there's no real access to the marketplace. And so I say, we've got to begin with the end in mind, and that is that retail connection like a Ranch Foods Direct store. And so here's what I said in an email to Anne Marie. I said, the Lamar publicly owned market is serving the broad southeast region of Colorado and the four-state area. New locally owned businesses, from a fresh meat market to a brewery using locally grown barley and hops, a coffee roaster, a baker, cheese maker, prepared food vendors of all sorts have an affordable home for their businesses, keeping people and money in the community. Essentially, all food is sourced from the region in this energy-filled year-round marketplace. Space is provided for seasonal farmers markets to outflow from the main market, welcoming growers from the Arkansas Valley and the region to sell directly to eaters and eateries. The market is the community gathering place for residents and visitors alike. Lamar would be the first to prove that the wealth created in our farming communities can remain, benefiting farmers, ranchers, students, and residents. LCC can provide a new, non-industrial, regenerative curriculum from animal husbandry to meat cutting to cover cropping to cheese making. Let's build it. No response.
Oh my gosh.
And here this school is trying to figure out how to get more students in. And I see a need as an alumni who had just received their Alumni of the Year award. Why isn't there any listening for this sort of a concept? And so that's what happened. It didn't go anywhere. But just to give you some background of why Ranch Foods Direct, and the U.S. has lost half its ranchers, over 90% of its hog farmers, and over 90% of its dairymen in the last 40 years. We've liquidated 10 million cows. Do you realize how much wealth 10 million cows create? What's a 500-pound calf worth today?
$1,200.
Times, oh no. Where I'll buy all those.
$2,000.
$2,000. And so multiply that times 10 million. Those are dollars, real dollars created from the soil. Like Ben Franklin used to talk about just before we declared our independence from the Crown and the East India Company as colonists. He used to say there's three ways you accumulate wealth. You can conquer it the way the Romans did. You can steal it the way corporations do. I'm sort of ad-libbing a little bit. The corporation he's talking about is the East India Company and its relationship with the Crown. But he said there's a third way, through agriculture. You plant a seed in the ground and add water and sunshine, and as if in a continual miracle, wealth is created. Cargill knows that, don't they? Cargill, ADM, Tyson, all these outfits know that. So they're here to collect your wealth that you produce. Oh, and we're going to make your life so hard on that farm that your kids aren't going to want to come back, and you're going to sell us your water. And we're going to pump it to Colorado Springs so they can keep building. And we're going to dry up this wealth-creating place that has the potential to grow real food that makes us healthy instead of sick. So, what are we got to do? We've got to create a marketplace for farmers and ranchers, family farmers, the more what we call sustainable and regenerative type operations to have a place in our economy. Concentrated wealth will destroy our nation unless the laws change. James Madison, president from 1809 to 1817. The day will come when our republic will be an impossibility because wealth will be concentrated in the hands of a few. When that day comes, we must rely upon the wisdom of the best elements in our country to readjust the laws of the nation. Where are we now?
Right there.
Right there.
Worse than ever. Wealth has never been this concentrated. You're paying more today every month for technology than you used to pay for a mortgage on a house. They're draining us. We've got to disconnect. We've got to go home and build communities that are safe and secure and outside of this current system. Bob Peterson, there's no stopping concentration. This is an evolution that's going to take place in spite of whoever is in the way. He said that in a 2001 article in Meat and Poultry. Well, in 1996, I met Bob Peterson at the Governor's Conference in South Dakota, and he was there blaming all the problems in cattle production on us, the producer. Well, you guys just produce too many, they aren't the right kind, on and on and on. Well, meanwhile, he was monopolizing the industry. He was cooperating with his so-called competitors, the other four packers. Vicious Circles was written in 1979, 4 years after I left Colorado State University with an animal science degree. I did not have a clue. I did not even have an inkling that the packers were rigging the market until 1989, when I heard Bob Peterson speak at a cattlemen's gathering, and what an arrogant sucker. I mean, he was there to pick our pockets. He was there basically to take our money, and had the gall to stand up there after they had dropped the market $17 in 6 weeks in the spring of '94. They dropped the market $17 in 6 weeks, and he wanted to blame that on the cattle producer. But we know now that they just had too many cattle with their captive supplies. Which, by aligning themselves with the biggest feedlots and the biggest food retailers, Iowa Beef and the other big meat packers would share the market, not compete, share the market from the purchase of livestock to the sale of meat. At the same time, Iowa Beef would strategically engineer the demise of nearly all of the small to mid-sized packers in the country, leaving America with a highly concentrated, dangerous, extremely fragile, and vulnerable meat supply. That book was published in 1979. When I was going to the National Cattlemen's Meeting, and they were promoting industrialization and vertical supply chains and all of this crap that you got to work with the packer, they're your friend and all of this. But I never read the book until much later. But here it is in black and white, what they were doing to us. And so it's a very good book, interesting read.
Sir, they just had, I just read news yesterday that another Tyson's shutting down. And I can't remember if it was in Kansas, but they're done.
Well, they've killed the host. I mean, they don't need as many plants when you've liquidated half the cow herd. And so what they do is they just shift that production to another plant, increasing that throughput. So, yeah, and they just paid how big a fine for rigging the market on the pork side? Tyson, just this week. And so, as a result of this cooperation among the packers, the so-called competitors, where they cooperated, they were able to get more of that animal that you produced in their pocket and give you less. And you can see that in the producer's share of the consumer beef dollar and what it's done. This only takes you to 2021. Markets are better now, but they're better because we've run out of cattle. They're better because the market didn't work. So they're a lot higher. But honestly, aren't as high as they should be for what we've got invested in the production of that animal. They still aren't as high as they should be. And compare that. Somebody just compared that from the other day to a new pickup. You know, how many calves did it take to buy a pickup in 1979 or 1970? And how many calves does it take to buy a pickup now?
Your whole herd.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I'm saying, relative to the inflation, cattle are still not high enough. But we're shocked because they're so high, because they've been so low for so long. And so here's where the real problem lies. It's that difference between the retail price to the consumer and the price to the producer. And you can see its concentration has increased, and now you've got Walmart, you've got Kroger, you've got Amazon. They are just like the big packers. They go out there and start cooperating. They have taken so much of that producer dollar that the producer can't stay in business. So we've got to close this gap. And the whole point of Ranch Foods Direct is to go around it and sell up here at that price level so that we can actually pay our bills and stay in business. And the kids want to come back if we're not under stress, financial stress all the time. But what happened to the overall beef price? I mean, where would you rather plan your business on? The wholesale market, or the actual retail market? Well, the retail market goes up and never comes down, except for just once in a while. But it basically goes up. It's kind of like the value in your house. If you own a home or a business on a main street, that business, that home appreciates in value. Where if you're selling in a wholesale market that's highly volatile and controlled by a monopoly or cartel, you never know. You never know where you're going to be. So we want to try to get to that retail level, and this goes back to the concept of a Ranch Foods Direct. So this is just an image that I think says a lot. America's wealth, rural wealth, and your producer is starving to death. We're getting the crumbs off the table. So in 1999, December of 1999, I got blackballed by the big packers. I filed a suit in 96 against IDP. It was one of 10 plaintiffs for anti-competitive practices. Going back to Jonathan Quitman, he just described the case and the basis of the case. They were cooperating instead of competing. They were manipulating the market. Well, they blackballed me finally. They just got tired of me. I'm always out there beating them up. And so I had 14,000 cattle in my 12,000 head feedlot. And the reason there were so many in there is because I couldn't sell them. And so I only had one buyer, National Beef. That's the only buyer that would buy my cattle. And he came by that between Christmas and New Year's in 1998. And I said, Don, I'm watching those National Beef trucks fly by my sign on Highway 27, loaded with cattle from South Dakota, and you're not buying mine. What's going on? Well, Mike, I've been told not to buy your cattle. Now, I got 14,000 head on feed, and they're eating $2.50 worth of feed a day. How do you think I felt when he said that? I mean, I was done. I knew it was a real possibility. But people were actually sending me cattle to feed because they supported the work I was doing in fighting the meatpacking monopoly. And so I was a target. So basically, I called this guy up, Dan Glickman. He was our representative from Kansas and then became Ag Secretary. He knew me because I'd written several articles or letters that got published that were extremely critical of him because he wasn't enforcing the Packers and Stockyards Act. So I called him up and I said, Dan, Mike Callicrate, I got a problem. Why don't you enforce the Packers and Stockyards Act? And I wouldn't have to call you today, which would have kept the market competitive and kept four big meat packers from going from 36% four firm concentration to 85% four firm concentration. Why don't you enforce that Packers and Stockyards Act? Well, you know, Mike, in this modern day of globalization, we need big companies that can do business globally. That is the attitude from Ronald Reagan, the dereg president, the first dereg president, to the current day. They still think that way. We still aren't getting enforcement of our antitrust laws, which would have protected your pickle plant in La Junta years ago. What do we get with Vilsack? A real lover of JBS in particular, a real lover of big dairy, big beef, big poultry, and big pork. Didn't do his job. Did not do his job of enforcing the Packers and Stockyards Act. And in fact, remember during COVID when they threw all that money out there, grant money to small plants, and a lot of that was matching grants, so they give you $500,000. You put up $500,000 that you borrowed from your grandma and your family and friends and everybody else, and now you can't sell your ground beef. Now you can't sell your meat. because there's really no real market for it. There's no access to a real market. But what if the government had policy to buy local, to support the local regional systems that are resilient during times like COVID? What if the government actually, for national security reasons, supported local regional food systems? What about the military? Why are they eating out of one meat packer's inventory and only one? They put the bid out, JBS gets it. They feed the entire military. And these are criminals. The Batista brothers are literally criminals. And yet we get them listed on the New York Stock Exchange so that they can get your money through your retirement fund or whatever you may be invested in. So we got a real big problem of Washington being captured by the monopoly, by the big food cartel monopoly. My friend Greg Gunthorpe, our agricultural and food system has economically gutted rural America. If we continue down this path of concentration and consolidation, there will be no independent family farms left. Most of the protein, the red meat, and the poultry is already a feudal serf system, where farmers don't own the animals on their land, only the manure, the mortgage, and the mortalities. There's no independent egg and chicken producers left, and the small to mid-sized pig producers and cattle feeders are virtually gone. We've lost 85,000 small feeders, like me. They're gone. Leaving industrial corn and soybean farmers and cow-calf guys, and they're on the ropes. And they still are. We're not replacing cows. We're not saving heifers. We're paying the bank. And look at where you live. Look what has happened with the depletion of the Ogallala aquifer. We've turned beautiful land, pasture land. We farmed it. We started growing on it, pumping the Ogallala down. In 1950, the well in St. Francis that we pump out of, the house well, had 100 foot of water in it, and it was 250 feet deep. Then we came along and, we've got our feedlot now, and we don't have any irrigation, but that water table is now 25 feet. We've lost 75 feet of water out of the aquifer at St. Francis, Kansas, 7 miles southwest. The well, one of the very first irrigation wells that was drilled in Cheyenne County was on the Robertson farm. It pumped 2,400 gallons a minute, and this was 50 years ago. That well is less than 350 gallons now. And most of the wells can't consistently grow a corn crop without a pretty good rain year. But we're fully aware that we're pumping this aquifer dry. We're fully aware of it, and we're doing nothing about it. Who runs the water boards? The irrigators. They've got a rule in Kansas: if you don't perfect your water right, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, that just encourages more pumping. And now we've got irrigators there that are retiring saying, we need to stop pumping. We just need to right now stop it. And so we've built this enormous industrial agriculture model on top of this Southwest Kansas, and I mean, the dirt's blowing, the water's depleted, the Arkansas River doesn't even make it to Kansas anymore. What was the primary recharge for the Southwest Kansas aquifers? What was the primary resource for recharge? The Arkansas River. It's now been diverted north through a 12-foot diameter pipeline called the Southern Delivery System. It's not coming through Lahana like it used to. It's being diverted. And along with that goes our crop production and our ability to feed ourselves. It's all been written before in the worst hard time. The 30s hit, dirt was blowing, it was a disaster, and then we discovered water, the Ogallala Aquifer, this amazing aquifer, which the whole entire nation depends on to eat. And we're going to just pump it dry and not say a word. I was in Colorado College in an economics class. It was before 2010, but I don't remember exactly which year it was. But it was just within 4 years of 2010. And I got invited to Colorado College a lot to speak to economics classes, food and ag class or whatever they may have had. Some really powerful students came out of CC in those earlier days that I used to present there. But this is a slide that was part of the presentation that I was giving that day in the economics class. And so the presentation looked somewhat like what I'm showing you now, but it was different. But I put this slide up and there was a room full of kids and this one hand goes up. And I said, if you'll wait just a minute, we'll be finished up and we'll take questions or comments. And so we kept going. And the hand went up a couple more times, the same hand. And so I was happy to get to the end of the presentation and I was looking for the hand. It wasn't there, he left. I didn't see him leave the room. But somebody said, yeah, that guy left the room. That's Sam Walton's grandson. His name is Lucas Walton. He's worth $41.3 billion today. His mother sent the ranch manager from their ranch in Mexico to St. Francis, Kansas and Colorado Springs to see what they could do on that ranch to make it more like we do. Never really heard back from him. I gave him a tour, I showed him around, I was happy to talk to him. Certainly wasn't planning on getting, compensated at all. I wouldn't have taken it. But Christy, his mother, seemed to care about the land. But Lucas, he got a sustainability degree, environmental sustainability degree from CC. And so what did he do? He's on the board of Walmart. But they put together these nonprofits. And one of them is called Good Chaos. That's Samantha's, Lucas's wife's nonprofit. I mean, what do you do with $41 billion? I mean, let's put some foundations together, right? And Lucas had a builders initiative. He may have changed the name of it. I was noticing this morning, but it's builders something. And they went around to the environmental groups. I'm on the board of one of them. And they just handed money out like it was candy at a parade. I mean, we got $175,000 in one in one organization that I'm still involved in, and in another one they got like $500,000, and they got that for a couple of years. Well, what did those environmental, not necessarily the environmental people you're thinking about, but people who want to see family farm agriculture come back, like the socially responsible ag project. They go out and they hire a more expensive executive director because the Walton Foundations gave so much money out there to these environmental groups. They literally raised the wages, the going wages of an executive director and staff. But we got all this money and we got it, of course they're interested in your policy and whether that's going to hurt Walmart or not. They're always interested in that. But they go out there and they absorb the grant money by paying out wages and hiring people and starting new projects. Well, what happened last year? They pulled all the money. It's a catch and kill. You go out, you finance these deals, they get up and running, they get, they become dependent upon you. And then you pull the funding and they just dry up and die. Just like the communities that they put stores in. Same model. So I still remember, I was in Lana when that plant closed, and they were actually making some burritos in there. They were. It was some of the employees that had been working there. They decided, well, why don't we make burritos and sell them? And they were going to try to get some distribution and so forth. But this was really, really hard to look at because this plant was really nice. And they had just done an expansion that was only 2 years old. But Walmart came out with like a 1 gallon jar of pickles. This Bay Creek, what's the name of it? Yeah, Bay Valley Foods. Bay Valley Foods. Actually owned by Dean Foods. And they had come out with this jar of pickles that just flat out, it was so cheap. It was so cheap, it just, you couldn't produce it. You couldn't make any money. And so they really forced, well, they just closed the plant. So, you know, Bay Foods had or Bay Valley had like 5 or 6 locations, and Rocky Ford was one of them that they closed. Pretty painful for the community. So, with pickle plant closing, workers think burritos. This is from the Bay Daily News. A "We Love Pickles" sign sits outside Bay Valley Foods in La Junta. The plant, one of the La Junta's major employers, will be closing in February. The closing will leave 153 people without jobs, a critically high number in this town of about 7,500. A number made more devastating because the region's other major employer, a bus plant, Lamar, with 300 workers, is also closing. Whatever happens at the pickle plant will affect everyone, said Glenn Parker. Does anybody know Glenn Parker?
Oh, yeah.
Are you Glenn Parker?
No.
Because he said it in this article. Glenn Parker, who lives in Rocky Ford, our agricultural community has gone to heck. If we're not an agricultural community and we're not a manufacturing community, what do we have to survive? That is, you got to make and grow things. If you want to have any kind of an economy, you've got to make and grow things. Like Ben Franklin said about agriculture, Dave Hill makes trailers. We've got to make stuff if we're gonna stay sustainable and in control of our own lives. The La Junta plant opened in 1940, but was bought by Treehouse's parent company, Dean Foods, in 2002. And Dean Foods is bankrupt now. You know, they went out of business. They were the big supplier to Walmart for dairy. Walmart built their own processing plant. Dean Foods went out of business, gone. They were essentially a monopoly, but they didn't even have access to the marketplace at a level that they could pay their bills, just like a cow guy. Over the past few years, Walmart has announced that they've closed well over 160 locations in 27 states throughout the U.S., affecting over 10,000 employees. What's the next step here? Wouldn't surprise me at all if Walmart goes, announces they're leaving. Like I said, the parasite leaves, the host survives. I met John Tyson one time. It was in 2001. I was at the Cattlemen's Beef Association in San Antonio, and he was announcing that Tyson was going to buy IBP. And I went up to him and I said, John, I just introduced myself. And I went up to him and said, John, there's a lawsuit against IBP that I'm involved in. It was the Pickett case. It was, and he said, what lawsuit's that? And I said, well, it's based on the Packers and Stockyards Act. I know all about this Packers and Stockyards Act. I said, yeah, I know, you do. And because you wouldn't be where you are today had it been enforced. and then he said, well, you're suing the wrong people. He said, you should be suing Walmart instead of IDP. They are the problem. They tell us what they will pay, and we have no choice but to pay you less. Can see the power of Walmart? The power is so extreme. It's unbelievable. I mean, one family member is worth $41 billion. How about all the rest of the family members? This is crazy what we've allowed you to do. But here's my favorite sociologist, Bill Heffernan. Let's start talking about an alternative food system, an alternative to this large global mass food production. And I'm sorry, but we can't play a video because it's not on my computer. So let me just tell you. Bill Heffernan started reporting on the poultry industry 50 years ago. And he said, it's a model of serfdom. Tyson, Pilgrims, whoever it is, go out and they contract grow. It's just like Greg Gunthorpe said. As a grower for Tyson, you own the building and the mortgage that goes with it. You own the manure and you own the dead birds. And you own the liability. And they get everything. Read the book, The Meat Racket. It explains it very well. But Bill Heffernan and I, in fact, with him a lot of the time, went around the country warning people, don't let the cattle industry go this way. But we're there now. We are there now. We're vertically integrating, especially these beef on dairy calves. We're vertically integrated from the dairy through the feedlot into the packing plants. And so Bill, in being the first to speak out, Bill faced retaliation from the growing number of academics supporting industrial agriculture. In my mind, he was the grandfather of all anti-monopoly work to come. Joe Maxwell, co-founder of Farm Action. This is another awesome group, Farm Action, that actually took some money from the Walden Foundation and, you know, had to find other funding to get pulled.
In this presentation at
Oh,
the
works.
Governors Conference in South Dakota in 1996, Bill Heffernan talks about alternative food systems. During the day, we talked a lot about the industrial model of production with Bob Peterson on the panel from IDP and other presenters during the day. But I think Bill Heffernan really makes the case for the alternative food system.
We need to look at the whole food system. Beef is just a part of that. I'm really quite concerned that in the sense of the food system, and especially the beef industry, is still moving toward what I call the industrial model, the mass production of food. People want more flexibility. They don't want a carbon copy product like we were talking about just a few moments ago. That provides us with some new alternatives for new people to get started and new production systems. And so my second point would be, let's start talking about an alternative food system, an alternative to this large global mass food production.
So now you know where I got the idea for Ranch Food Direct. I didn't know it. He planted that seed in 1996, so 4 years later, Ranch Foods Direct was started. But an amazing guy, just passed away this last summer. What does the industrial model represent as far as dependability? Resilience. They closed the Tyson plant, moved that production to other plants, and now what are we going to do when we really need to be fed? It's not going to be available. The industrial model runs at 100%. If they're not at 100%, they just close a plant and shift the livestock over to the others that are left. Because the accountants, the executives demand it. The shareholders, right. The shareholders demand it? Not necessarily. But this is what happens when COVID hit. I took this picture in March 13th. This is the Kroger King Soopers store, just down the street from the Range Foods Direct store. Empty shelves, I mean, gone, wiped out. The only thing left on these shelves was the fake meat. Nobody wanted it at any price. Meanwhile, Ranch Foods never had an empty shelf. But we owned our own supply chain. We had the cattle, we had the cut room, the slaughter plant, and we had the retail. Nobody went hungry in our outfit. But boy, did we work hard. The business tripled in a matter of a week. And we had to just pour the coals to it. And everybody worked really hard. Called up USDA and I said, hey, we're getting hammered. We're running, the big guys aren't. Can I just get a couple hours extra USDA time? No. Really? This is a further processing plant. You don't need a full-time USDA inspector. My inspector in Colorado Springs probably takes care of 5 or 6 other plants. They don't have to be there. They're not there most of the time. And you're going to say no for me to operate an extra couple hours a day so my staff can get a snack, something to eat, and rest a little bit? And you said no? Paul Kicker, USDA FSIS administrator? I mean, whose side are you on, buddy? Well, obviously, they're on the side of the big meat packers and the big retailers, and have been for 50 years. And this is why we have so few small plants left. They make life miserable to an independent operator. USDA allows the biggest and dirtiest meat packers like JBS, Cargill, Tyson, and Marfrig to self-inspect. Literally, they allow them to self-inspect. Isn't that already the Prime Act that what's the guy in Virginia? Tell me. The senator or legislator? He's a legislator. He's a rep. Massey, Thomas Massey. He wants a Prime Act where nobody needs inspection. I'm not sure that's a great idea, but the big packers have it already. And so, we proved our resiliency. Elements of food system failure. The 1980s Reagan administration promoted a no rules deregulation policy, get bigger, get out. Agency capture, big business took control of regulators. USDA and land grant institutions embraced industrial ag, declaring agriculture a business, not a way of life. Stewardship was lost to extraction, mining mentality. Animal science replaced high welfare animal husbandry, moving sows to crates, hens to battery cages. And cattle at 150,000 head concrete feedlots at Hagler, Nebraska, that's being built right now. Processing sector consolidated to match power of national distribution and retail, blocking market access and eliminating small processors and jobs for skilled workers. Meat tradesmen lost jobs to unskilled, low-wage, easily exploited and subsidized workforce. Food quality was sacrificed for quantity and price. Big retail, food management, food service companies developed an anti-competitive and exclusive kickback scheme. Diverse, resilient family farms, local regional food infrastructure were lost to industrialization and financialization. Return to empire. I mean, return really to the East India Company and the ground, where we started as a country. What did we do about that problem? We had a revolution, and we won. Producer organizations and media were captured and controlled as producer share of food dollar decline. Result, rural decline, increased poverty, environmental degradation, poor health and food insecurity, and now we are a net food importer. When I was at Colorado State University, we were going to feed the world. We can't even feed ourselves. President Lincoln, back in the 1860s, said, we've got to connect producers more closely with consumers. He said as a result of the war, what he feared the most was corporate power and the concentration of that power into the hands of the few. And was he ever right? Because just after that, the barons formed. So we had the banking trust, the railroad trust, the meat packer trust. We had all these trusts that basically took over, and then Teddy Roosevelt came in and said, hey, I think we need to break them up. And I was hoping Obama was going to be that president. He said he was going to be. In fact, he put Phil Weiser, Colorado AG, on a board, and it was Phil Weiser, Bill Sack, who was the Justice Department guy. I'll think of it. Anyway, they went all over the country and held hearings, the ag hearings, the antitrust hearings. Then I went to one at Fort Collins, and they piled them in there. Farmers, ranchers came from all over. And then they didn't do a thing. They did nothing. And this is where, when I see Phil Weiser, it seems like every time I see him, Mike, I'm really, really sorry that we didn't get something done. Well, hey, you're running for governor. Meet me in La Junta, October 5th. And I want you to tell us how we're going to rebuild Colorado's ability to feed itself with all the help you can muster as the future governor of this state. I want you to tell me that. I want you to tell everybody that. Couldn't make me say he's right? So, retail access, the market access is the most difficult thing. But how did things work back in 1970 when I could sell to 20 different meat packers out of my cattle operation in St. Francis, Kansas? Literally, in 1978, 79, when I built that first feedlot, I could sell to as many as 20 packers. And there were at least 10 that showed up every week. In fact, on a Monday morning, one of them was sleeping in his car outside the gate at the feedlot, wanting the first shot at those cattle. Alpha Beta in Pueblo was there. Peppers, Litvack, Sterling Pack, Booker Pack, Clovis Pack, IBP, Cargill. Everybody was showing up. And then 1998 rolled around and 0 people showed up because they already had all the cattle they needed contracted and spoken for. But how did things work back then in 1967 when I was working at the Thrifty Food Market in Everett, Colorado, in the butcher shop? Everything was cut from a carcass. Pepper and Litvack. The most beautiful Gary Cortez kind of heifers. Beautiful, fat, prime, high choice, unbelievable quality, melt in your mouth, the best beef we've had. We haven't had beef that good since then, except if you're getting it from Gary. But how did the economics of the system work back then? Well, let's just take a look. And this was printed by the Meat Packers organization. This is real numbers, right? And so in the 1970, decentralized and competitive marketplace served producers, workers, consumers far better than today's extractive food cartel. In 1970, producer share was 82%. In 2023, the share was 39 to 48%. And it dropped as low as 27% during COVID. That's just flat out market power. That's totally abusive market practices. So back then, believe it or not, in 1970, a steer was 29.5 cents a pound, 1,000-pound steer, about $295. The retailer paid $265. So the retailer actually paid $30 less than the meat packer paid for the livestock. How does that work? Well, it's the drop credit. The hide, the head, the heart, liver, tail, all of that stuff was worth enough to pay the meat packer's costs and have some left over and be able to sell for less than they paid for the animal to the retailer. Then the retailer came in and marked it up about 95 bucks. Well, adjust that for inflation. Of course, it's going to be a lot more than that. But the shares all changed dramatically. But who really orchestrated the retail share to get big was the meat packer, the cartel. And I used to talk about how the big retailers are robbing the bank and the packers are driving the getaway car. They are stealing from the producer and handing most of it off to the retailer. In fact, I can't tell you how many retail stores beef producers built over the years from those meat departments that were cashing in. I mean, during COVID, the retailer admitted, the packer admitted they were making $1,500 a head. And the retailer was still maintaining margins. And this is why you saw that price go up so much. So again, we can't sell into this highly concentrated marketplace because they're not going to pay us our fair share. So we believe the ideal farm is family-owned and operated, diversified and livestock-centered, responsibly grazing and feeding the farm's production with animal manure going back to the land. That's just like the big meat packers with their 100,000 head feedlots, except different. Those 100,000 head feedlots pile the manure up. The chicken operations with 1 million hens are piling the manure up. They're polluting the streams, the rivers, and the land isn't getting the benefit of the manure. They're hauling manure out of Yuma, Colorado, 200 miles now. Compost. How efficient is that? Where at our place, our manure gets blended in with our slaughter waste, composted, and then spread on our own land, improving soil health. This is the regenerative soil health and practices that we've got to get back to if we're going to save our soils. Just kind of a circular model. It's all about the soil. And we much prefer barley over corn. And it's a dryland crop. It doesn't use irrigation. So, and it makes a beautiful white fat too. So we really like barley. And of course, if we just make the whole circle, we slaughter on the farm, and the bone, before we make bone char out of the bones, we make broth and stock. And then all of it gets thrown together and into a compost mix, and it goes back to the land. Just a set of fat cattle. These are some Red Angus Akaushi, the Red Angus Wagyu crosses. We use an Angus cow with a Wagyu bull for our breeding program. Then we also do hogs, mixed breed sow with a Berkshire boar. And then those carcasses are loaded, so our animals never get on a truck. They never leave the place. They don't have a 500-mile, highly stressful ride to a slaughterhouse. The Colorado Springs Food Hub provides space for meat processing, local fruit, vegetable distribution, and value-added food production. I don't know of a food hub anywhere that's made it or is making it. But if you could add meat processing, that brings them the year-round income they need. That's the income they need. We've got to have livestock. I think we're getting over the vegetarian thing. Does that make sense that? I love this carnivore. These carnivore docs, they've done a lot. They've done more for beef consumption than 40 years of beef checkoff. They did more in a year for beef consumption than the checkoff has ever done. And we don't pay them. They just get healthier and their clients get healthier. So this is the Range Foods Direct store over on Fillmore. It's near the location we started in Colorado Springs, but our lease ran out and we had to move it, so we ended up buying this old Conway's Red Top, and we turned it into a meat market and a food store. It's got everything you can possibly gather from the region. I mean, we sell candies, we sell popcorn. It's all made right around where a raw milk drop off. So we had to put in a little shed to make it right with the health department, because you have to buy a share, you know. But we put a shed in that back there with some coolers so they can do a raw milk drop off. We do everything we can possibly do to promote local vendors, manufacturers, food producers, whatever it is. But what really makes it fun is El Chapin. El Chapin located a taco trailer and a smash burger trailer that cooks their fries in beef tallow right behind this little Fillmore store. 35% increase in sales for our store. The co-location. The co-location is absolutely critical. Don't try to open up a meat market on Main Street in Hunter. That would be dumb. You need to be co-located with everything else everybody would want. You know, somebody said just this morning, they said, boy, it's just so convenient to be able to go to a big store and buy everything. I said, yes, it's very convenient to go to the make-our-own market and get everything. I've got people that have shopped at Range Foods Direct now. Their kids are fully grown and having kids, and all they've ever eaten is Range Foods. They don't need anything. We have the produce. We have the meat. What else do you need? You don't need Hot Pockets.
Oreo cookies are nice.
What is the Oreo cookies?
Double stuffed.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not going to find those at Range Foods. But we got really good cookies. Yeah. So anyway, you know, this is the meat counter at the Peak to Plains. We got two stores. We got one inside the plant at the Peak to Plains Food Hub, and then we have the bigger one over at Fillmore. But what do you do about butchers? How do you get people that can break a carcass down? Yeah, you go to any store you want, there's not going to be anybody in there unless they have a lot of gray hair that knows how to break a carcass. They've been dealing with box beef, you know, from the big packers. But these two guys, he just retired at 85. He just retired at 75. But they trained a bunch of people before they left. And this is what we've done at Ranch Foods, is we've trained our own people. So the industrialization and de-skilling of the beef industry has left us with precious few butchers that know how to break down a carcass into retail cuts. Old timers Roger Whitman, John Nakosha have trained their replacements at Ranch Foods Direct.
I'll tell you what, the butchers that they have at Safeway are awesome.
I was in there today.
Yeah.
They have a real meat room.
Yeah, they're great.
How long has that Safeway been there? Because they got a real meat room. They can cut if they want to.
They do.
And that's gonna hurt.
And they're all in panic right now because, you know, there's a lot of people can't relocate, you know, sell their house and relocate.
Right.
And one of the ladies over there, she loves her job. She knows what she's doing. Now she's in a quandary because, you know, there's no jobs around here at Walmart.
No, that's not an option. So anyway, now this is the key, these are the key words. With community support and strong antitrust protection. Attorney General Weiser, hello. The make-your-own marketplace could provide a profitable and healthy alternative for producers and consumers to connect around good food. through collective ownership, farmers and ranchers along with artists and food makers such as butchers, bakers, coffee roasters, cheesemakers, etc., would be insulated from the so-called free market, which is unregulated and unfair and predatory, and exorbitant rents. We lost so many restaurants in Colorado Springs during COVID. As the seats went up, the rents increased 60%. Gone, they're done. They're gone. And they are coming back. As compared to the Keg in Manitou, which is one of our oldest customers at Ranch Foods, they own the building. So what did they do? Well, they collected the payroll protection money and paid it to the front of the house staff. Mom, dad, son, and daughter-in-law kept the kitchen running for pickup to-go meals. Their volume never dropped, but they had no expense at the front of the restaurant. They took their PPP money and they remodeled the restaurant during that time. Quite a bit different from Steve Travelli over there near Peterson Air Base in his rented location, where the landlord raised the rent and then tried to steal his brand and his equipment and drive him out of the location. This is terrible what happened to restaurants that are paying rents. And so I went from that public market concept to a maker-owned market. And so that butcher has to own his own space. Everybody has to own their own space. And everybody says, yeah, but where are they going to get the money? That's what we're going to figure out.
I have a question for you. When Walmart came in here years ago, I mean, I said that's the end of, I saw it from the very beginning, but boy, people were excited about it. And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but everybody's excited about it. I know people that support Amazon like it's going out of style.
Yep.
And the problem is, how did you get people to get out of this price is everything mode? I can get it 5 cents cheaper through Amazon, they ship free. Yeah, but when there's no other place to buy it, they're gonna charge you whatever they want. And then where are you
Yeah,
gonna
like
get?
you said at the gas station, Walmart's already increasing their prices. She said
Yeah, I mean, we had mom and pop stores here, we had a butcher here when I moved back in '92. And the regulations and all of this, it's
So we have to rebuild.
It's gone.
We have to rebuild.
But you gotta get the people
It's disorder.
convinced that, price isn't
Yeah.
the only thing that you look at when you're buying something.
You remember, this is the last slide right here, and then I want to show you something. This is the Queen Victoria Market in Melbourne, Australia. I took this picture. God, you talk about getting excited about a marketplace. I mean, of course, what is that? 4 million people in that community. But I've never seen anything rock the way this thing does. I mean, and in the meat hall, this was not the meat part of the area. They've got rails that run down both sides of that meat hall. So they got all these vendors, sausage makers, butcher shops, everything, bunches of them. But they get their carcasses in and just in the middle, like at 3 in the morning, they back that truck up and roll carcasses down to these shops when it was cool. Well, that's all been replaced with boxed beef. Cargill and Conagra, now JBS bought the Conagra plants. But that's all been replaced with boxed beef, which is just a terrible thing. So I want to bring we got to bring the carcass trade back to where it's a safe product. Nobody ever didn't know it really at the time. In the 90s, when we killed those kids at Jack in the Box, and we had this huge blow up around E. coli 157H7, and that was a result of switching to boxed beef. Had they aged those carcasses 6 to 7 days, they're clean. We don't do that anymore. But we do it when we at Ranch Foods. It's all carcass meat. So it's safer.
Well, yeah, I'm old enough to remember people butchering wild game and things in their garages, and nobody ever got sick.
And boy, there's nothing wrong with that. This last month, the average retail price of beef, Walmart, Kroger, USDA does a scanner, pull scanner data. And they come up with this average price, which is right here in the corner, $9.85 a pound is the price, average, at the retail price level. Who's got a calculator? Somebody pull your phone out. So do this. What's the average weight of a steer right now, or heifer, fat heifer?
Tell us what
1,400.
1,400. Take 1,400 times 0.42. Tell me what that is.
588.
588 pounds of retail cut. That's what that animal's going to yield. Ground beefs, roast steaks, everything else, right? 588 pounds.
$10.
Now multiply that 588 times 9.85.
5,791.
Now let's go back to 1970 and get you 82%. Remember that? Story of the steer? Let's go back to the old ways. Where is it? Let's go back to the old ways and let's get you 82%. Okay, that's what it used to be when we had a competitive market.
4,749.
Divide that by 1,400 pounds.
3.39.
Didn't I say cattle prices aren't high enough? They're $245. You can sell it, and that $9.85 I just showed you, that's Walmart's average price on beef. Now that doesn't mean they can't put together a tube of whatever it is. It's big meat packer. It's big meat packer.
Parts is parts.
Whatever. It's waste fat. Oh, it's imported. That's the key. You got to bring in imported meat, which is half the cost of production. You blend that with big meat packer waste fat, and then add pink slime.
And a little ice, so that.
Yeah, and sure they can sell that for $4 a pound, but you got to know their average real price across their scanners is $9.85, and you just got back $3.39. But ranchers can't be in the meat business. It's too hard. You got too much work to do. And besides, there's too many people out there trying to do it, and most of it's not real. It's like butcher shops. They claim, I'm a local butcher shop, but they're buying their meat from Tyson. That's not real. And that's not helping your community. So, but really good. When they put the Walmart in Goodland, Kansas, 30 miles from St. Francis, I couldn't believe how excited they were in St. Francis to drive 35 miles to go, wipe out their own Main Street in St. Francis.
Yeah.
And they were literally frothing. And I suggested, you go east of St. Francis Highway 36 and you hit Highway 27, there's a T there. And I was sort of half in jest, suggesting that we put a toll booth. And so, as you came back from Goodland, we would do an inspection. What did you buy at Walmart? And how much was Walmart selling below the actual cost to put St. Francis Main Street out of business? And we collect that then, collect that difference. See, that's what we got to have Weiser do for Lahaina. And I understand there's people that can't afford to eat, but hey, SNAP, please don't take that away. We need to feed our poor people. We need to lift these communities, not stand on their necks.
We need to go back to bartering.
Yeah. But we got to be wealth creators again, and citizens instead of progressive price shoppers. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Ty. I legally changed my middle name to Erb, so I have a license to be tired. I do my work in the disability vocational work. I work with a lot of people who are trying to escape poverty and contribute to the society. I want to help build communities. I would love to invest, and I think you're right when you say for every $5, and I'm making up numbers, but for every $5 I spend at Walmart, how much of that is actually staying in the hunt for jobs versus being shipped
Oh,
out.
it's
So
wages.
It's out of here, it's out of here.
if we had a youth food community, I would love to shop there to keep the money here. You know, I would just also want to make sure that we have competitive employment, that, just like you said, that people have to own their buildings to have a part there.
Yeah.
I'd like to make sure that they also are hiring people competitively, because that's a problem. There are no jobs in this area. We have some of the poorest communities.
You don't want to feel like an Amazon distribution center employee. Hey, Ty, you've been in the bathroom now for 5 minutes, you're only allowed 3. They've got a tracker on you.
Oh,
And they're gonna come storming in there saying, get your ass back to work, buddy. I don't care if you aren't done yet. I mean, we've got people working at the Smithfield slaughterhouse that wear diapers because they won't give them a break. We've got a president, Trump, that forced all those workers back to work in those big slaughterhouses that died of COVID. Shoulder to shoulder. We didn't even have anybody get sick, but we're spread out. I mean, and the other thing I want to do at Walmart is I want to put a scanner in. So as you leave Walmart, it will scan your cart, and it will give you a rating. And this is a contest, you're in a contest. And the rating is, how much human suffering, animal abuse, and environmental degradation did your basket represent? And you potentially could win the day if you did the right job of shopping. And we could give you an award, maybe, perhaps, or a free something or other.
The best one I heard is.
So what do
Walmart's gonna
you
be
see for lunch?
Shut on.
I see a make your own marketplace.
And how are you going to help us?
Well, I don't know. I'm here to try to get you to do it. Oh, I didn't bring enough of these. Somebody want to pass these out? Okay. I don't know, who owns the Safeway store?
Albertsons?
Then buy it.
It's for sale now.
They're saying they can sell it to.
No, they are. There's a thing on the.
Then
back
build
door.
something.
Yeah.
So, have y'all ever been in a Cabela's or a Bass Pro? Or a Dick's Sporting Goods? You know how those buildings have that big centerpiece that's really well lit and it's open and airy? It's kind of that center. Back in the back, there's fish swimming around and an aquarium and they have elk heads and all kinds of stuff, and it's really open and feels good, right? And then all around the side of it, you've got the shops where you buy stuff. A building like that is what I'm talking about.
That concept drives Peter.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That would be cool. So I'm just saying, have a common area in the center. And then, in fact, I've got a friend in Billings, Montana, that Western Ranch Supply, they put a new location on the west side of town. It's like this. They happen to partner with a True Value. So it's got hardware, now it's got ranch supplies, it's got all the vet supplies, it's got clothing, it's got all this stuff. But I'm saying, it's basically a fairly large box, but around the edge are your makers. So you've got your butcher shop and your cheese maker, and all of it is open. It's fully transparent. And it's got the best burgers, fries cooked in beef tallow, it's got tacos, it's got a huge outflow for the farmer's market during the summer and the season that can, expand or contract. But everybody in it owns it. And I just think about how long a cigarette butt lasts in a parking lot with owners inside running their businesses. At Ranch Foods Direct, it doesn't stay there very long. It's spun up. And so you look at the chains, they're all growing weeds. The people inside don't give a damn. They're on their phones. They're not being paid a living wage. And probably a lot of them don't know how to work if you did pay a living wage. But I'm suggesting you build it here in La Junta. This is a regional hub. You got 2 sale barns. How many people come to town every month?
Every week.
Yes.
We have several empty buildings in that we could definitely remodel, like the old Dixie building. I don't even know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big box.
We're always in Dixie building. city owns a lot of pipelines that I think the city should be able to donate
I think
or
that,
help out in some way. That's my understanding.
and the city has
Trying
to,
to rent it out.
the city has to be behind it 100%.
City council has to start getting some bids out.
But I'm just telling you, getting another grocery store in does not work. It's with Walmart in the community.
I'm gonna say something real quick because that's false. We do not own any buildings in the city, as far as that could be grocery stores that we're doing now. Right now, we're in very, very deep negotiations for the building known as Safeway. Okay, we can't share all that right now because it's not defined yet. Okay, we hope to know something within the next couple of weeks. Okay, I think you have a great idea. I think you're doing a great job in promoting that. Just because that isn't available doesn't mean that we can't do something somewhere else in town. The Gibson's building, the city doesn't own it, but we have it under condemnation. Okay? The person that owns it has to try and get it out of condemnation, but he needs to make strides in that building before that can be used for anything like what we're wanting to use it.
And what is the cost variation of trying to buy out Safeways from Albertsons versus rebuilding Gibson's?
So the Safeway deal, just so you guys know,
Yeah.
that's private, right? The company that's in negotiations with Safeway is a private company that's trying to buy that from them. We do know what's going on, but we just can't share those details right now. That doesn't mean that we can get involved and say,
Right.
"We gotta do this." What they want to do is they want to get it done quickly, so that way they can try and keep as many of the employees that they have before they move on to other areas.
What about the non-compete? I thought that the employees and the building both had non-compete clauses on them, that you can't use them for food. That the
Not to our
employees
knowledge-
can't work.
To our knowledge, our store and the store in Lamar are not going through that right now. Okay. I can't speak for the other 14 that are also closing throughout the state and the surrounding states, but that's where we're at right now. I think he has a great idea. I think if you guys can get some people together, I think there are locations that could be really, really good for this kind of thing. He hit the nail on the head on a lot of these things, but it takes people to step up and do it too. It's not just going to appear out of thin air, and it's time to get serious on stuff like this. Otherwise, he talks about meat prices. It's everything costs so much now. The Walmart is a thing, but also the internet and Amazon and having access to that on your phone. It costs so much less to do that, but it hurts us so much more when we don't shop local, when we don't support these things. And the way he's integrating all these other different things by putting in, markets and things like that's just integration. That's how much did you say it went up when you added?
35%.
35%, just like that.
And it helped that they won the best taco in Colorado Springs. So we got all these new customers coming in, and they're eating this wonderfully good, great non-pink slime meat. And so then they become customers, yes.
Where I came from was a place called Redding, California. And in Redding, California, there was a meat market there that did exactly what you have. They were called R&R Meats. And they had a little bit of everything in their store in addition to their own meat market and stuff. The local community, and this is a very large city, I forget, 250,000, something like that. The restaurants there all bought their meat and advertised.
Big deal.
And yeah, they put signs, we buy
Are you
our
guys getting
meat.
any place that doesn't serve the meat from the butcher shop?
Right.
No.
They put these big signs, we buy from R&R Meat.
Right.
Our hamburgers are made from R&R Meats. All the best restaurants in town advertised for this particular meat company, so it can work.
I was, where was I the other day? Oh, Shmakanish. You know what I'm talking about? On Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, Michael Shmakanish has a show, and they were talking about the violence and the killings and just the breakdown of society. And Michael said, we need more places to mingle. How do you build a community? Bring people together. I was at the coffee shop on Fillmore, just down the street, Colorado Coffee Merchants. It was Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. And I've got a meeting there in person. What he does is develop real estate. And so we would look at a box, a Safeway, whatever it may be, and then lay it out. You know, how can we best redesign this so it suits the next purpose? And what was so cool is an older guy came in, older black guy came in, and he was dressed in real kind of yellow, like an upbeat kind of makes you happy to look at the colors, you know, and he was just so full of energy and he just exuded, you know, happiness. And I just said, hey, you make me feel good just standing there. And so he shook my hand and introduced himself. Well, he's a retired fireman. And Eric, who owns the coffee shop, is also a retired fireman, so you have this little kind of community that supports each other. And before I got out of there, there had to be 15 or 20 retired firemen in the place. And I just said to my friend that I was meeting with, I said, you know, this doesn't happen at a Walmart. You gotta mingle. You gotta build the place for your community to mingle and turn consumers into citizens and people who help each other instead of stand on their neck and pick their pockets. Yes.
I think there's 3 things that you said that made me really get excited about what you're talking about, and that's one of them, the community building and having places where we can gather together. The other thing that I worry about all the time is our young people leave, you know, and there's just not any future for them here. And then the other thing is in your model, you're eliminating that wholesale thing, and you're taking the producers and hooking them right up with the person that's buying.
Right.
And I remember during COVID, Kansas did a really good job as a state of, because they were getting a few months into the pandemic, during the shutdown, the farmers were starting to have to toss milk and meat and stuff. So the state helped direct buyers to the farms, directly to the farms, and all of a sudden, you know, a dairy producer suddenly had 150 cars lined up outside the farm. You know, so it was pretty rudimentary, but they did something about it. And so that's what I like another grocery store, it's just gonna be more of the same. We're gonna be getting, you know, brand name, corporate,
Absolutely, brand label.
box stuff beef and all that
And it's
stuff.
not gonna make it. They're not gonna be happy.
Yeah,
We've
and-
seen it happen time and time again.
They can't compete with Walmart.
No way.
So, I'm with a group that's working on an education project targeting like the passions and interests of young people, and butchering is on the list, and also dryland farming and innovative agriculture, regenerative farming and stuff like that. Because like what you said that really sparked me up is that we have wealth here in this valley, you know, and we've been just busy dealing it out to Aurora and Denver, you know, and look around us, you know, our population is dropping 2-3% every year in every town in the valley. What, you know, and that's our young people, and then us that are dying, you know.
Right.
It just, like, I think we have to think outside the box and not try to do let's get another grocery store in the Safeway building, because how can they make it? Is it gonna happen again? What happened with the Safeway? So I really, really like your idea, and I would really like to work with you
Well, we'd love
you know,
to help you.
get a group together.
But I
here
think one of the things that I've learned over the years, oftentimes when I try to repurpose a building, oh man, I was better off building a new one. A lot of times, because it's just, so you go into a building, you gotta cut all new plumbing in and give people, the various folks in there, their drains, and sometimes it's just better to build a new building. Amortize it out over 30 years and get it financed and get it going. It's brand new, it's shiny, it's light. clean. So
But that's a big pet peeve I have, is that we keep tearing down our beautiful old architecture here, and then we put up like something that's one step up from a tough shed.
Yeah.
So we don't have any architectural art attached to our communities anymore.
Right. So those windows make a nice structure.
Well, you could get this something like that, but you have classes on asbestos mitigation.
Yeah.
And you could work with the Office of Apprenticeship of the state. ODET, the Office of Economic Trade and Development, would fund a food hub here.
Yep.
They absolutely would. Because if you can think of an idea in southeast Colorado that generates jobs, there's money.
Well, we need to pay the farmer and the rancher and get their kids to want to come back. So we got to stop the outflow. And you do that with a farm gate income. One of the things that we were thinking, you mentioned about the wages. I think it was you that mentioned about the wages. That bottle right there turned into the $3.39 fat cattle, paid the processor. He made money. It's $1.20 cut fee on the carcass hanging, $125 kill fee. Everybody in there made a living income. So it's not like we had to steal from anybody to get the $3.39 back to the ranch gate. We didn't. Everybody got along good in that. There has never been more money in the food business. It's just that we don't get it as producers and workers. Workers are a key thing. You had a question or a comment.
I'm surprised at how many of you have come tonight. Thank you. Where do we start? It looks like we have lots of interest, but where do we start getting this put together?
I think you put a committee together.
Oh, God.
City councilman, is he on city?
There's the mayor.
Awesome, the mayor's here. So the chair of the committee is in the room. Yes.
Are there any ranchers here?
Yeah, I got ranchers.
I have a question. So you're the rancher, I buy beef from you. You know, I'm not saying it's you, but I do buy beef locally here. Where do you go take your meat to get processed? How far do you have to
Actually,
go?
we take ours to Garden City.
Okay, my ranch has to go all the way to Flagler to get their processed. And then we have Blue Ribbon processing here. So I have a question to you.
And you got Wiley.
So I have a question to you, sir.
Wiley.
Oh, Wiley, yeah.
Is, if we brought Ranch Direct, and we know we have this rancher right here, could they bring their meat to Ranch Direct and get it processed?
About half of our total slaughter is for other people. So they bring us their animal at St. Francis. We kill it, put it through the plant in Colorado Springs, and give them their meat back, fully packaged and retail ready. They can sell it to people, they can eat it themselves, whatever they want to do. But that's about half of our slaughter. Is for
But
other
would you
people.
provide that service still for this rancher right here?
Well, I wouldn't want to. I want you to do business locally. Why wouldn't, well, I don't know how Blue Ribbon is to get along with, or Wiley Processing, or any of those, but we've got to support who's in our communities here.
It's tough to
Talking
get.
about that, how would you support Blue Ribbon? Because they're local, they grow their own meat.
Well, they supply the butcher shop.
Okay,
So the butcher could buy from Blue Ribbon, or have animals processed at Blue Ribbon for the butcher shop. Find a young guy that wants to be a butcher.
See, that's the hardest thing, is
And then we
the trade
need-
is going away. It's all the old trades.
If you presented the opportunity,
Can't find a decent lumber anymore.
if you presented the opportunity, you'd fill the.
And we have a
fill the
butcher
role.
that wants to train a younger butcher.
Yeah, that's a gift right there.
Right.
Yes.
You said that you felt that a lot of times you're better off to start and build a new building. We've got lots of underutilized or vacant buildings in a 2 to 4 block area, downtown La Junta. And something like this could utilize the spaces that are already there and get them retrofitted for what is needed.
But you want to make sure it's a space that has a common area. And here's like Bristol Brewing is up in at Ivy Wild in Colorado Springs, right? So you got Bristol on one end of the building, an old school, and you got other stuff at the other end of the building. Joe Coleman and his concepts, eating establishments, whatever, on the other end. They're connected okay, not great, but they're okay. But what's really not okay is Axe and Oak has opened up an establishment on the outside of the building on the southeast corner. Nobody even knows it's there. So it gets no benefit from all of the activity that's upstairs. So you've got to make sure you're co-located to where people can actually connect.
Parking.
And parking.
downtown.
Yeah, this is why a box like a Safeway, I was in there on my way here tonight, and I mean, I can see that as a public make-your-own marketplace. Huge parking lot, you know, it's already got the power, it's got the plumbing, you know, you're gonna be cutting up some concrete for sure, but it's probably not a bad location. And I love the parking lot. You've gotta have a parking lot. We, at Branch Foods Direct, our problem is we don't have a big enough parking lot. And so we've had a neighbor that was a pot shop, and he was happy to let us use about 10 parking spaces on the edge of his parking lot that we can use. And people just, you know, they got to use the parking. They started parking in there. Well, then it closed, and it was closed for 3 years, so that it was my job to keep the homeless messes cleaned up and just, you know, trying to be friends with the owner of the property to where I could keep parking there. Well, now it's turned into a physical therapy place. Parking lot's all brand new, sealed and striped, and looks like it's going to be great. Went in there and asked the young lady, are we going to be okay for parking in your parking lot? Absolutely. Oh man, what a weight lifted. But you gotta have it. You gotta have the parking. And with food, you can't walk a block. You need to be able to park in close. Who else? There was somebody
Here.
Yes.
I'm wondering, I maybe missed something here, but I'm wondering how the startup is going to be funded. I know like the producers are going to be owners, if I understood right. I mean, as far as startup, how are you planning on funding to get it off the ground?
Well, what I would think about in a market is get a developer that wants to build to sell, not a developer that wants to build to lease. So you got a developer that knows what he's doing. He knows how to get the property under contract, he knows how to remodel it, get the architects involved, get it all done. And you basically finance it. And then you bring in your makers. Then you start selling off like a condominium. That's a really good comparison. A condominium. You're gonna buy a condominium, that you're gonna own the condominium. Those are built all over, especially for retirement populations. You know, they sold their house, they've got some cash, they put it in a condominium. And then you have an agreement among the owners that this is how we will operate, like a homeowners association. And then you go to SBA and you get a 504 loan, which is a lower interest and a 10% equity requirement. But what is the market value of this space after it's fully equipped and is beautiful and you're co-located with all these other people? And it's the hub of the community, and it's where life happens in the community. What's the market value of that you can borrow against? Probably more than you paid for it.
Good point.
So that's how you make it work.
I just wanted, I wanted to understand that because.
And Jeff Bezos' wife seems to be a nice lady, and she's got a whole lot of money and talks like she wants to see better things than Amazon happen. You know, who knows? When you build one of these and you show how well it works and who it benefits, we're going to build a bunch of them. We've got to fix this mess.
Now, Mike, your Ranch Foods Direct is an LLC, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you do all the makers that come into the store? You just...
We buy their stuff and resell it at a low margin.
Okay.
Our objective is to give them as much as possible.
Overnight, that's for sure.
Julie, do you have a list of the names? And
I do.
Email addresses?
Yep.
I'll put this presentation up on my blog and share it with you.
Okay.
For the folks that didn't get a copy of the hard copy.
Okay. Because I think we've obviously seen the interest in it, and it's something that can happen.
but we've got to do it as a community. So I want to thank the mayor and the city council members that were here tonight to hear the presentation, all of the community members that came out and the interest that's expressed, because I think this is really an opportunity for La Junta. So, Rayanne?
Julie, is there a sign-up sheet for anyone that would be interested in being on a steering committee or?
We already have Joe's name on it, we have Lynn's name on it. Well, you just said that, Joe, you were going to be
updated. I'll be on the list to be updated.
Do we have a sign-up sheet somewhere?
Yes.
They can sign up as they leave?